Matthew Elliott, BeLeave has been fined for breaching funding rules. You've had punitive fines for not cooperating. I assume you're here just to say sorry, aren't you?
We're bemused by the findings of the Electoral Commission. When they produced their interim report 6 weeks ago, we provided a very detailed 500-page response answering all of their points with the opinions of a QC and several lawyers to actually back up our claims. So we're very disappointed they haven't actually taken up our points or actually engaged them in any meaningful way. And moreover, we made it clear to them we were willing to come in for interview and actually give our side of the story. So we feel it's a very one-sided report. We wish they'd followed due process, and had they done so, just like they gave us the all clear on the first two occasions they investigated us, they would have given us the all clear again on the third investigation.
But they're very clear that they did, on 3 separate occasions, invite you in for interview, and you refused.
There was an exchange of letters, basically over Christmas of last year, when they started the third investigation. So they seemed to kick it off because a bunch of Remainers had started a judicial review against the Electoral Commission, and they wanted to start a third investigation to try and stop that. So we were really saying to them, why are you starting this third investigation into the same matter you looked into on 2 other occasions? So there's an exchange of letters, but the key point was in the final letter, we made it clear to them we were willing to come in for interview at any point, and that's a position we've maintained. And in fact, we've reiterated on several occasions since then, saying we will come in and give evidence.
Now, you say you want to provide evidence. There is a conclusion. You have been fined, very big fines. Are you going to appeal?
Well, this is the Electoral Commission's conclusion. We will definitely take this on. We're consulting with our lawyers.
Can it go to judicial review?
It can go to judicial review, we can appeal it. There are a whole range of options, but we will definitely be taking it forward.
So you're not going to let this lie?
We won't let this lie because we feel that a huge wrong has been done. They listened to one side of the story, not our side of the story, and we're confident that once it actually approaches a proper judicial process, a proper court, legal process, then our side of the story will come out and we'll be given the all clear again.
The report, though, contains what look to be very straightforward facts, that BeLeave, the organisation that they say you controlled, was an organisation where you helped to draft its constitution. I mean, there are so many examples given in the report of the way that you directed BeLeave. How can you say that it was a separate organisation?
Well, it seems to have a string of facts, but actually not bring them together in any way. And in fact, in our response to the Electoral Commission a fortnight ago, we explained all of these different points. So, for example, on the Constitution, we drafted a template constitution for lots of different groups to make sure they would engage with us in the right way. So we did everything by the book throughout the campaign.
So why did BeLeave put its money with Aggregate IQ? Why did it use the same data set as the data set available to you?
Well, they didn't do that.
Well, the report says, Facebook says, they did have access to the same data set.
The report corrects itself later on. That's one of the conclusions. So, on your 2 questions, why did BeLeave use AIQ?
Yeah.
Because they wanted to run a social media campaign and they chose to use AIQ.
The Electoral Commission says you directed them to use Aggregate IQ.
I would love to see the evidence for that because there is no evidence. There's no evidence to point to that. In fact, we provide them with a plethora of evidence to show that BeLeave chose AIQ themselves.
And just to be clear on this data point, Facebook are just making it up, are they?
Well, Facebook make it clear in the letter they originally sent to the DCMS Select Committee. It's all quite complicated.
No, but I mean, we're all intelligent people.
Yes. They made it clear that actually the data was never used by BeLeave to send out any adverts.
So what did BeLeave send out?
Well, BeLeave sent out adverts that they came up with themselves, but it wasn't.
So they were not your adverts. Categorically, the adverts they sent out were different from your adverts.
100%, they weren't our adverts. In fact, in the evidence bundle we sent to the Electoral Commission a fortnight ago, it included all of the adverts for the campaign so they could compare and see how they had very different messages.
But just to be clear, because this is a sort of very odd distinction, the Electoral Commission says that BeLeave had access to all the same data as you, but you're saying categorically that they use completely different data.
There was a mistake on the part of AIQ, which they've written to the DCMS Select Committee about how they accessed some data from BeLeave, but it was never used on any BeLeave adverts. It was a mistake by one of their junior officials.
So how did BeLeave get data at all? A brand new organisation run by a 22-year-old? How does...
Well, you don't need data to run Facebook ads. You actually run Facebook ads primarily by excluding different groups you don't want the ads to go to. So you don't need a data set to
But just to be
run
clear,
ads.
you were very happy to give a bunch of money, a ton of money, to a 22-year-old who was basically spewing out stuff at random.
I think it was a gross characterisation of what he did. BeLeave was a very effective campaign. Darren Grimes set it up. Back at the end of December 2015, he was running a Twitter account, a Facebook account, all sorts of different pushes throughout that period. So he was running a sustained campaign for many months, so basically 6 months. And then towards the end of the campaign, a range of groups had approached us saying, could we provide donations for them, which we're allowed to do according to the Electoral Commission. Darren was one of those groups. And in the short period of time between the fact we had more money and the end of the referendum, we felt that Darren's was the appropriate campaign for it to go to.
Now, we've all seen those pictures of Darren in BeLeave T-shirts, in your offices. I mean, the prima facie evidence is that he thought of himself as part of your campaign.
Well, we had activists in and out the office all the time to attend.
But he was supposed to be running his own campaign, so why was he in your campaign if he was not running his own campaign? I mean, if he was running his own campaign?
There are plenty of pictures of him holding up BeLeave posters as well, but he came into the BeLeave office every now and again. But if you look over to the Remain campaign, there are plenty of pictures of different people who set up their own campaigns at Remain, again wearing the official Stronger In t-shirt, but then wearing their own t-shirts. These are very, very small details.
Now, here he is, young man, whacked with a £20,000 fine. Do you feel no personal remorse, no personal responsibility? Because, I mean, his life has been pretty badly damaged by all this.
I feel very sorry for Darren Grimes over this. And I think what the Electoral Commission have put him through over the past 2 years is appalling, frankly. And he's been given a £20,000 fine for essentially ticking the wrong box on their form. And again, they've got the facts around this wrong as well. They say he became an unincorporated association in May, when in fact they knew he was an unincorporated association from February, because he was part of our designation process. So they knew all the facts around this, and I think it's terrible. They've basically spun this out for 2 years, putting him through the ringer for 2 years. It's really terrible.
Are any of you going to have a whip round and help him pay his 20k fine?
We'll make sure that Darren has the resources to pay his fine if he chooses to do so. But of course, he has to make the decision about what he does next over this.
So just to be absolutely clear, you've got no regrets about how you ran the campaign as far as you're concerned? No, I mean, it is an extraordinary state of affairs. Here we have, the primary institution that exists to ensure a level playing field in elections and referenda. It issues what appears to be the strongest ever condemnation of a breach of rules, and you're just saying it's straightforwardly wrong.
Well, like I say, I'm very bemused about what the Electoral Commission have done. They didn't listen to our side of the story. And this isn't the first time they seem to be bungling a whole load of different things from both the referendum and recent elections as well. I think it's a real question about whether an institution that's fit for purpose. It's very interesting that the lady, Louise Edwards, who's looking into our case, she's done all sorts of Facebook posts criticising the Conservatives. The chairman of the Electoral Commission came out to say how he regretted the result of the referendum. So this seems quite a sort of biased organisation, which I think the real question is it fit for purpose?
And when you say is it fit for purpose, some would say the problem with it, I mean, it says, just to be clear, it regrets not being able to fine you more.
Well, they would say that, wouldn't they? What I'm confident of is that now this is moving into a legal process rather than a regulatory process. When it's a legal process, they have to listen to both sides of the story. They have to consider all of the facts. We've always been confident that when anybody looks at the facts and takes the time to do so, they will see that we did everything by the book.
I think what some people may be bemused by is this. I mean, there may well be an argument that lawyers can put that says you stuck to the letter of what the law says here. But, common sense shows, a young bloke sitting in your office he may not have actually used the same data as you, but he appears to have had access to it. You helped him write his constitution. That's a whole raft of what people would just say is absolutely clear evidence of connections between the two organisations. Aren't you really in the end doing something that really annoys people, which is you're confusing the letter of a law? It's what people hate about politicians. You're clinging to words rather than the spirit of what the law says.
We were designated as the lead Leave campaign because we said we would work alongside other groups. And if you look at what the Remain campaign did towards the end of the referendum, again when they had too much money essentially, they set up a plethora of third-party groups who actually got money from all of the same donors as the official Remain campaign. They used the same companies as the official Remain campaign. They actually worked on projects together. In fact, Craig Oliver, who basically led the Remain campaign, he talks in his book about the referendum, how he had a morning phone call coordinating all of the activities of these groups. So I find that unbelievable, and I wish the Electoral Commission would look into that. So, it's quite common in campaigning. You've got to work with various people. The fact is that we did it within the law.
Matthew Elliott, good to see you.
Thank you.